your flesh and blood.
Welcome to Tell Me Your Story, new paradigms for a new world where we're giving you choices and knowledge of those choices to help make your dreams come true. We are here 9 times a week, Sundays at 7 a.m. and 7 p.m., Monday mornings at 1 a.m., Wednesdays at 9 a.m., and Monday through Friday from 8 to 9 a.m., streaming live at all those times at richarddugan.com. We are on SoundCloud, iTunes, TuneIn Radio, Spotify, Stitcher, Player FM, as well as YouTube, where you can watch these conversations. I hope that you will take time to subscribe and click notifications so that when a new conversation is posted, you'll be notified and you'll be able to tune in, listen in, and learn, be entertained and inspired. A reminder that Choices, which is my book, 5 Steps for Life, it's available on Amazon.com in paperback, hardcover, and Kindle with Audible, soon to be released. We also ask that if you can support the work that we are doing financially, we do have a PayPal account. It is there for your security as well as ours. And when they ask for an email address to whom you're sending, please go to richard@richarddugan.com. That's the email address. If you go to richarddugan.com, there is also a link directly to PayPal so that you can send us whatever support you can. And we thank you to those who have helped and to those who will help. We also ask that you take time during this decade of perfect vision, the 2020s, to go within to that quiet, peaceful, calm, still place and listen to that still, small voice. And with that, we now take you to our very special interview and guest here on Tell Me Your Story. And welcome to Tell Me Your Story. I'm Richard Dugan, your host, and I thank you so much for joining us. Reverend Dr. D is my other moniker, if you will. We have a returning guest with us here on the program. I'm very excited to continue our conversation with a gentleman who has been involved with something similar. I'm not going to say it's the same as what I've been doing, and that is my wife and I, of course, trained as Reiki masters. He's doing energy work. His name is Tim Spriggs. And Tim, thank you so much for coming back on the program. It's great to continue this conversation. I think it's extremely important, not just in these times, but all the time.
Well, yeah, thank you for having me. And I really enjoyed our conversations in the past. So I look forward to this new conversation we're having, or continued one. Yeah.
I know that we brought up I brought up the question, well, what is healing, because of the experience that my wife and I had with my father's brother and his cancer and so forth. And it just really did dawn on me as I've talked with you and other people in that regard that it all depends upon your perspective. As a matter of fact, I was just talking with a woman the other day about a higher perspective. In terms of raising our consciousness, raising our awareness, raising our understanding to a level where we better understand maybe where the other person is coming from, at least so as to be able to be, shall you say, maybe a better facilitator to that person. And I know you use your intuition too, but talk to us a little bit about the need for a higher perspective.
Actually, it's kind of twofold that I'd like to talk about. And the first part was, and we talked about this last time, was the heart wall. And it ends up, when we have traumatic events in our life, our heart wants to be protected, and it creates an energetic wall made out of trapped emotions. And when that happens, yes, it protects us for a little while, but the body doesn't go back and remove that wall. And the problem with that is then we, can't really connect with people as well as we would if we didn't have the heart wall. Mm. And I like to use the example of, I think we've all had this, where with a text message, we send out a text message and we have one tone of voice in our head and it's innocuous or pleasant, but someone else gets the text message, the recipient of that, and they just go ballistic because their perception of that, and they have a perceived different tone in their voice, in their head, and that's kind of what I liken to the heart wall, because it doesn't allow the full communication with somebody. And so I guess that was what I wanted to say about the heart wall, because we really, we need to connect with others. And by connecting with others, it helps us to understand them better. And by understanding people better, I think, we don't get as many of these, disconnections or misperceptions about what they're trying to tell us. And when we do that, then we can actually collaborate a lot better. Because as they say, two heads are better than one. And if we can all work together, it's usually a much better result than if we're all fighting. Because you fight and nothing gets done, or things get destroyed, or so on and so forth. So I think that's a very key point to make. But also with another modality I use is called belief code. And what that directly deals with is one's perception. If we have these negative statements within us, that, and sometimes they're inherited, sometimes they're created when we're very young, and they're usually a misperception of things. And so this whole belief system, and I'm not talking about a belief system like religion or that kind of thing. It's more of a belief system around one idea within your life, and something has happened to you, and you end up getting these negative statements that come together, and as well as negative emotions, and then that causes imbalances in the body, and you end up perceiving the world totally differently than you would have without these. And so a lot of times it blocks us from achieving our goals, because we'll have, like, let's just say one statement saying, "I'll never be good." And that one statement keeps going around, and we may not even recognize it being there, but it's in us. And so whenever we're trying to accomplish a goal, "I'll never be good, I'll never be good." And so that kind of defeats us before we even start. And so that's the other aspect to this, is where your whole perception is clouded, or it's a misperception. You're wearing the rose-colored glasses,
Yeah.
except in a negative way.
Yeah.
And yeah.
It's and again, this whole aspect of perception, as I was talking with this other person about, is we kind of came to the conclusion that it's very important for us to work on our perceptivity, if you will, and heightening it, if you will. I know that there are examples of when you can walk into an empty room, and if there were a bunch of people in that room shortly before you arrived, and there was a lot of, oh, I don't know, how do I put it? A lot of negative energy, to use a term.
Mhm.
You can kind of feel that if your perception is heightened, if your
Yes.
awareness, if your sense of, shall we say, your empathic, not necessarily empathy, but your empathic senses, which we all have, are heightened, you could feel that. Or maybe in that room there was a lot of fun and laughter and just having a great time. You could feel that too. So
Yes.
if you can feel it in a room, you could feel it with a person face to face. Can Tim, can you feel that even through a situation like this, where, let's just say, I'm having a session with you? You're able to pick up on me and what I'm feeling, or you get a perception, you get an awareness of where I am at, maybe emotionally or at least energetically.
I'm glad you brought that up. So I've used this example in the past, in that, but when people were kind of unbelieving about feeling things like that. But I think most people that I've talked to anyway relate to this, where you meet someone for the first time and you start having a great conversation, and you actually kind of get elevated from it. And you can do this over the phone as well. And you just feel just really good after talking to this person.
Hmm.
Well, the same goes when someone's really down, or a negative person, and you have a negative conversation, and you start feeling drained after the conversation. You leave there and you go, "Oh, what's going on with me?" And it's the same, like I've had phone calls like that too. And most people I've talked to say, yeah, I have had that happen. And this is similar. So, and pretty much the same, really, because you are feeling what is going on when you're talking with somebody. And that's how we connect. And you get to the point too, which I'm sure you felt in your practice, is you get to the point where you can connect with somebody without even talking to them, and and without them being there. You can connect up with them, and you can feel things from them. And so that's what I do, and I'm sure you do that as well. And you know it's but when people still have a hard time grasping that, I think. So if you think about, sometimes you're walking on the street, let's say, or maybe you're in your car and you see someone, and immediately you get a feeling from them. They may be having a hard time, or maybe they're just having a great time. They're really happy, like you were saying, if you walk in a room. And similarly, you could just see someone on the side of the road that, there was this one person I would see going to work, and the first time I saw him, I just felt great because he just emanated this. He was very happy, very positive person, and he was trying to make ends meet. He was having some issues, and so he chose to try to sell newspapers on the side of the road to make some money. But he didn't ever. I never saw him get down. Like maybe he hadn't sold, he had still a stack of papers at the end of the day, but he was always very friendly. Everyone, hey, how are you doing? Have a great day. What's going on with you and stuff. And he was just very open. And so that's one example. And on the flip side, I've seen people where, they're sitting on a bench or something, and I just feel like this. I don't know. You can feel the sadness, or you feel the dread, or like the world is just on top of them, and they're having problems that day. And I'm sure most people have probably felt that. And sometimes if you haven't felt that, it takes a little bit to try to connect with people and see if you can feel that. But yes, that is such a great example to use. Walking into a room full of people, you can walk in, and they have this example where people will walk in and they go, oh, did I interrupt something? Like if someone's been arguing, a couple people. Or you walk in, oh, what I miss? Because, hey, you guys are really excited about something. So yes, those are such great examples to use. And that's how, at least one way, we connect as people.
Folks, you can get a hold of Tim through his website, which is wellnessrevival.net. That's wellnessrevival.net. And find out more about the work that he is doing through that website. There is, you can actually get in touch with him through the website and set up a session. He's got some special rates and so forth, 50% off of three sessions using the coupon code SPECIAL50. That's special and 50. And of course, he's got flexibility in some other areas as well. So please get in touch with Tim. We would really appreciate it if you did. As we continue talking with our energy healer, Tim Spriggs, on Tell Me Your Story. I'm Richard Dugan along with Tim Spriggs, and we are talking about energy healing, and I'm quite familiar with it as being, my wife and I are both Reiki masters, and I know that that's part of the equation, if you will, is learning some of these modalities, these different ways of utilizing the energy. One of the things, though, I think people might have a misperception, speaking of perceptions, is that I am doing it with with my energy. And the reality is that we really aren't, are we? We are acting more like conduits than anything else, right?
Yes, that is correct. And I know, especially in Reiki, that comes into play very much. In So the three modalities I also work with: emotion code, body code, and belief code. We're working with the person's subconscious, and instead of channeling energy into them. I'm looking for and identifying blockages. They can be imbalances in the body. They can be trapped emotions, or that, as we were talking about before, they could be like negative statements that you have within you that are creating blockages or creating issues within your life. And so we remove those. And I'm not channeling anything, and I'm not specifically doing anything. What we're doing is using an energetic charge to remove those blockages one by one, so that the body can actually function the way that it should. It's a great healing, an amazing healing entity by itself. And so we're just removing those so that the body can do what's you know been born to do.
Now, when you put it that way, it sounds as though we all can do this, that this is not something that's exclusive to any one group of people or one individual or one segment of society, that this is something that we all have the power to do to channel that energy, to coin a phrase, to channel that energy through us. And then, of course, facilitate others balancing. I mean, in a manner of speaking, sometimes it isn't a dis-ease, although we could classify pretty much anything that's out of balance as a dis-ease, but it's more getting us back into balance, isn't it?
Yes, yes, exactly. And yes, anybody can do this. It is. I've had fellow practitioners that have a hard time doing it on themselves, and so they ask other practitioners to help work on them. And that's actually where I found, because I do have a second degree in Reiki as well, and so part of that is to be neutral. You're not supposed to go in with an agenda.
Mm-hmm.
And I found by having that training, it's really helped me with this because I can work on myself or family members. I've had other people who have a hard time working on their own family member. Um, and it's good to recognize that. I'm not saying it's a bad thing. It's just that, I'm able to do that because I do have the Reiki training as well.
Mm-hmm.
And so, but yes, anybody can learn how to do this. They need to learn how to do muscle testing and go through this. And sometimes people, I think, can intuitively do it themselves without having this system. But I think it's harder that way. The system that I'm using is it's very detailed, and it helps you get down to the root of the cause. And so when I found this, and I kind of have a proclivity for, because in my previous career, I was working with computers, and I would get down to the root of things that no one else could figure out. And this really appealed to me because that's what we're doing. We're getting down to the root of things so we can remove that blockage, and then the people can prosper. So
I know there's a there's a phrase that I use, especially when it comes to, so to speak, trying to manifest things.
mhm.
My wife and I, as I've shared on this program, are trying to manifest a new place to live because we are having to move from our present location, and it is a bit of a frustration, no question. There is that. But the phrase that I came up with that seems to really help, especially when, as the phrase goes, the monkey mind starts to chatter away,
Mhm.
and that is, and I've had my wife doing this too. I raise my hands and I begin the process of sending Reiki to that situation. And obviously the situation of having to find a new place to live. And it doesn't necessarily solve the problem, but it does quiet the monkey mind. It settles that down. It brings me back, shall we say, into balance. And then when I'm in that manifestation mode, the phrase that I use is I have anticipation with no expectation. And those two terms, those two words, they're totally different from one another. And that's kind of what you and I would do in a healing mode, whether I'm using your system or Reiki or what have you, is I'm sending it out there with the anticipation that the person or the situation is balanced, but without expectation of what it's going to look like. And
Hmm.
what really keeps driving that home for me is my uncle, who my wife and I sent an absentee healing to back in, I think it was the late 90s or early 2000s. And he passed away. And I'm going, what happened? Well, I've since learned, and I think I shared this with you the last time, that when somebody is dealing with a disease and the body ceases to function, there's no loser. The individual, if the disease goes into remission, whatever it is, they win. And if they leave the body because the body is no longer functioning, they still win because
Hmm.
they're free of the body, of the dis-ease or of the imbalance. What are your thoughts on that perspective?
Um, yeah, no, I agree with that. I think you're right on track with that. Because yeah, sometimes um, you know, my my own mother actually, she my father had died, and not long after that, she had a remission of cancer, and she ended up being in hospice. They thought she was going to die. They were just ready for her to die, and I went there to visit her. She didn't recognize me, um, but I ended up getting a homeopath and naturopath to help me with some things, and I also did what I could because they wouldn't allow her to leave hospice until we could get her to a point where they would say, okay, she can leave hospice. And doing some things that I knew, as well as working with some physical therapists and that naturopath and homeopath, which they didn't allow into the building. Um, I was able to get her to the point to where she could walk because she was bedridden. She could hardly even move her feet when I first got there. And any case, she got dramatically better, and and she was able to see some more grandchildren born. She was able to be at home. She was very lucid. She recognized everybody, and she had good conversations. But after about 3 years, um, she just said, I'm done. I'm ready. It's time for me to go. And she quit doing the regimen, and she died like within a day of that. She was just because it was her time,
Yeah.
and and so it kind of had both those points that you were making. It She got better, but then it was like, okay, I've seen the family. I've done what I needed to do. I was here for all these things, but now it is time for me to go. And she left. And so yes, I think that is an aspect of healing.
Hmm. And I know
You
too
know.
that, those of us who have animals and have had animals over the years who have come and gone, sometimes they need a little assistance, if you will, rather than making them suffer until they eventually leave the body. We
Hmm.
assist them in that process. Well, they will, and I think it's intuitive that they will tell us in
Hmm.
some way, I'm ready. I'm
Hmm.
ready. And we just did that back in June of this year with our big black king shepherd Angus. And I, I I marvel at that process every time I see it happen. I marvel because not only is the animal being set free, but it's non. I'm going to say non-traumatic, at least from the standpoint that they go quietly. And yes, we have the tears, we have the grieving and so forth. But we also know that, we've done the right thing because we don't want our friends to suffer. And I wish that we had that level of compassion and understanding for humans. We've got some people who think that it's suicide, which of course they perceive as a sin, and that person now is going to hell. It's like, oh, thank you for loading those bricks on my wagon, you know. um, but it's like uh, there are those, and I've even heard those stories too, Tim, of individuals who say, "I'm done. I'm ready to go." My father was that way. After his eldest daughter, my oldest sister, passed away, he basically made that statement. He said, "I'm tired. I just don't want to be here anymore." Now it was probably more because of the passing of my sister, but I think it also had to do with the fact he was 91 and his body was starting to slow down even more, and so forth and so on. So I've heard all of these incredible stories of people who just said, I'm making the decision that when I get to this point where my quality of life is not what I want it to be, I want to go." And at the same time, I've heard that you can learn how to do it, shall we say, naturally. You can consciously leave your body. You don't have to wait for it to stop functioning. You don't have to have any assistance to help it to stop functioning so that you can leave. But it's not something that's widely known. It's not something that is like public knowledge. And again, I can understand because of some of the philosophies that we have on this planet regarding death and dying. It's it's sort of a paradox of sorts because as my father, I love quoting my father, he said, uh, "Eat, drink, and be merry in moderation because no one gets out of this world alive."
Mhm.
And maybe, of course, this is questionable too. This is allegedly there's only been one person who didn't die on the planet in all of human history. Allegedly, there is only one person, but everybody else. And I know there's a number, and I can't remember what it is, of all of the human beings who have existed from the beginning of human history. And I'm not sure if it's in the tens of billions or trillions of human beings that have existed. Or maybe it isn't in the trillions as is of yet. Because right now we only have about 8.3 billion, and so forth. But it is a process. Have you been a part at all of something like that where you're not administering anything, don't get me wrong, other than maybe the energy to give to the individual to do with it as they wish? And if it's their wish that they depart, have you ever been involved in anything like that?
Not in that respect. No, but like I said, my mom was ready to go, and in a way, yeah, I guess in a way, I did give her energy because she wanted all of us to say, it's okay for you to go,
Hmm.
you know, because she was, hanging on, I think, for the children and the grandchildren, and so we did all have a chance to talk to her and say, if you want to go, it's okay.
Yeah.
And we didn't miss or anything, but I think we did give her that energy that to say, okay, this it's okay for you if that's really what you want. And my father actually was the same way. He he was in the hospital and um he was ready to go as well. And we the whole family and even grandkids got to be there and got to see him. And pretty much, we told him it is okay. You don't have to stay here on our account. And that's the thing is that some people I've talked to have said it's so selfish to try to keep someone there because
Yeah.
they're ready to go, and yes, it's hard on us, it's hard on the people who are still left behind. you know
Yeah.
and yes, we don't want that, but if it you know if they're struggling and having such a terrible life by being here, it you can kind of think, well, is that really them that's staying on?
Yeah.
Because the pain and everything they're suffering through really changes a person, and they're not really able to fully be here with us when they're in that much pain. And so, telling them, hey, it's okay. We're, you know, we'll be all right. We got to tell both my parents how much we appreciated them and all they've done for us, and they're not going to be forgotten,
Yeah.
And but if it's their time, it's okay. And so they did, and I thought that was the best thing we could do. It was very hard, but it was. I thought it was such a perfect thing because we all got to talk to them. We all got to give them permission, but as well as reminiscing about our lives with them.
Tim Spriggs, my guest. I'm Richard Dugan, Reverend Dr. D. This is Tell Me Your Story. The website, by the way, is wellnessrevival.net. Go there, find out more about Tim as we continue here on Tell Me Your Story. I'm Richard Dugan, and Tim Spriggs is my guest here on the program as we continue bringing you new paradigms for a new world. We're giving you some new choices, and sometimes they're choices that we bring to you a multiplicity of times. Tim is a returning guest on the program, and we're glad that he's with us. And I find it fascinating, Tim, that we have so many. That's like I said earlier. We have 8.3 billion people on the planet, and growing, mind you. It's
Mhm.
growing, ladies and gentlemen. And and it's I don't see where it's going to stop anytime soon. And it's funny too, Tim, because one of the things that I remember watching, we're talking here now. We've been talking in the last segment about people passing on. Bernie Siegel, of course, wants me to use the word die. They've died. It's death, not transitioning, not moving on, not passing on. And so, in deference to Bernie, thank you very much, Bernie, for that. But then we have the other end of the spectrum, the births. And what I find fascinating is there's a story I just saw about how the birth rate in the United States specifically is going down. And I'm sitting here going, so what's the problem? Because there are 8.3 billion people on the planet now. I'm not saying that I have no agenda as to how many people this planet will hold. It's not, that's not the relevant part. It's that there are all kinds of people, and we'll just say infants and children, who are orphans, who have no families. So why not take them in rather than creating another one and another one and another one and another one? I mean, and it's not because I don't have kids and I didn't choose to. From my perspective, I was born with a congenital eye issue, a dis-ease, if you will, from my father's side of the family. I didn't want to pass that on, and I made it. Okay, I made it. And I turned out pretty doggone good, I think. But I just chose not to do that. I shared that with my father, by the way, once, and he says, "You do realize, Richard, that if I had made that decision, you wouldn't be here." And I said, "Dad, I know, and I appreciate your having me, bringing me into this world." I guess what is it? The statistic is something along the lines of, "I am one, just like you are one out of, let's say, a billion or more sperm cells that made it. We persevered. We
Mhm.
made it through. We went through the struggle. We were so resilient that here we are, you know. And I guess on that one level, that's pretty remarkable for each one of us who is here, to be able to claim that. I want to talk to you a little bit about your story. And of course, you've shared a little bit of it here. And for those people who are tuning in, maybe for the first time, they're hearing you. Give us a little background on how you started as an energy healer. What was the moment that you realized, oh, this is something that I can do to help humanity, even if it is one person at a time or one situation at a time, because I'm pretty sure you can use that same energy to heal situations as well as is taught in Reiki.
Yes. Well, it's interesting you're bringing up about the orphan children because I am adopted myself,
Oh,
and yeah. So, and my brother was too. We're not biological brothers, but but he was adopted as well. And and I still have other siblings, but us two, we were both adopted, and I never did meet my biological parents, but I did struggle a little bit with it. I think like most people would when you find out you're adopted. Um, but I've always felt very thankful to my biological parents for making that decision. Um, and I had my adoptive family was a great family. So I was adopted into a family as a baby, um, and they were in the medical field. And so I grew up with, my father getting calls almost every holiday, and frequently late at night, like 2, 3 in the morning kind of thing. And he would get up early in the morning to go see his patients that were in the hospital, and then he'd come home, have breakfast, and then go to his office and work. And then he would, after that, go back to the hospital to check on people, and then he would come home. And so many times, he was, we'd be eating dinner without him because it'd be late, or he'd be coming home right as we're, in the middle of dinner. Um, but he was always a very, very caring person, and my mom as well. She was a nurse, and two of my sisters went into the medical field as well, and uh, so I got that sense of caring, I think, from them. And I may have already had it within me, of course, but I got that great example growing up with that, and so I always wanted to help people out as well. I didn't go into the medical field. I wasn't as good at science as I probably needed to be to go into the medical field, but um, it just didn't hit me at that time. But I'd also learned along the way that you know in the medical community in general would go after symptoms, and they'd try to treat symptoms alone. And I always thought, there's got to be something better than that, because we don't want to just treat the symptom. We don't want to keep this disease going and going. If possible, it'd be nice to go and get to the root cause of things. And so I learned about chiropractic, which my family thought, what they at the time they thought they were just quacks, right?
Mm-hmm.
And acupuncture I learned about as well. I ended up getting into the martial arts, and I learned about different modalities, including Reiki, and reflexology, acupressure, as well as the acupuncture. And I didn't get certified in any of these things, but I did learn different pieces about them, and I would try to help my friends with them. And I also learned, and actually this was from my dad, because I was having a really rough time at the time. And so he gave me a vitamin, and it really picked me up. It happened to be a B vitamin complex, right? And I was like, wow, that made such a difference in my mindset and my whole life. And so I started looking into supplements and getting into supplements. And again, if I found, which people tended to come to me too, or I shouldn't say come to me on their own volition. It's just they would come across my path, and they would have these issues that I had just learned about, maybe. Is very coincidental, but they would have an issue that no one seemed to be able to help them with. And I'd say, oh, I heard about this supplement that seemed to help with that, or this combination of things. And, so I was always trying to help people. I was trying to help my other family members and friends and just people I came across. And so eventually I went ahead and got into Reiki. Um, and that was a great thing, but people didn't seem to be able. It's subtle. It's a subtle thing, but it's very, I have found it to be very powerful, but it is very subtle at the same time. And so then I was doing that, but I heard from my Reiki master that there was something called emotion code, and I started reading about it, and I said, oh, this is what I've really been looking for my whole life, because it was actually very in tune with how I am, where I get down into the root of things, and it would help people. And so I was helping, of course, when you're training and going through the certification, you're working on your family and friends and whoever will allow you to work on them. And I was seeing really good results. Well, so I was very happy with that, but I started getting into the next level, which is the body code and then the belief code. And each time I got into each one of those, I was going, oh, I have to get into this because it's even more powerful. And because another thing about me is I like to be very well-rounded. And these three put together are so well-rounded because, like I was talking about before, you kind of get a whole system of things, and you can really make a big difference that way. And so that's kind of my story. So that's where I am now, and I'm helping people, and I'm just so excited about these three modalities coming together, and that I'm able to help people because that's ultimately what I wanted to do. I want to help people overcome things, and there's kind of an interesting story about that because that's my previous boss that in the computer world. He would have us do something using these things called calling cards to find what our calling is. He was a minister, and he would do that, but he'd do it for everyone that worked for him, so that way he could better align their interests with the projects. Because if you're aligned with your calling, you're going to do better, right? And be happier, and typically the result is a lot better. So anyhow, my calling turns out was helping people overcome obstacles, and so this fits perfectly with that. It also fits perfectly with my natural knack, I guess, to get to the root of things, and I've always wanted to help people, and I didn't have the uh, I guess I also didn't have the time and the ability to really get into the deep medical fields. But in a way, I think that's better because this is something that I can work with medical professionals on, and if they can't, if it's not helping the person, then hey, let me give it a try, right? And and I've been able to help a lot of people with these different issues like that, these situations like that, and it's just been wonderful. So I want to help as many people as I can.
Well, you found your calling. There's no question about it. And we're grateful for the fact that you and so many others are finding their calling. They're finding their life's purpose. And in many instances, it is in the healing arts. And we can use all the help we can get these days. It's not that these days are that much different, although I was talking with someone just recently who did make the comment that, yeah, things are a little worse than they've ever been in human history, and they, of course, they lay the onus on social media because we're so focused on all of that that then charges us up energetically in one way or the other. And you don't see that in the natural world, which is rather interesting. I mean, yeah, you see predator prey, that kind of thing, but that's a label that we've put on that. That's just nature taking its course, you know. They're not attacking and eating more than they can consume. It's just that for the day, that kind of thing. If they're carnivores in that respect. But it is interesting how if we would use nature as our teacher, I've said it many times before, nature is our greatest teacher. If we would just get down and go to school, sit down and learn something, from Mother Nature, it would be a good thing. We're going to take another short pause here and remind you that you are listening to Tell Me Your Story, that we are talking with Tim Spriggs, and we are talking about his energy work, his healing work, and we're talking about it by sending you to his website, which is wellnessrevival.net, wellnessrevival.net. We'll tell you about the specials that he's got going on here as we continue here on Tell Me Your Story. Tim, you've got some specials that you have made available to the folks who go to your website. I don't know that it is necessarily exclusive to those who are listening to the program. That people can, for a nominal fee, that also then that of course even that is a matter of perception, but nonetheless, it's not a huge amount, to where they can even get a consultation with you to find out, okay, well, what do I do now? Which direction do I go? Or how can you help me discover the path to, I'm going to use the term balance. How can I find the path to balance in my life?
Yes, I do have, when you go to my website, again, wellnessrevival.net,
Mhm.
there is a option on there for one of the sessions. It's a free 15-minute call that we can do, and we can discuss the options that might be right for you. But also, if you just want additional information to make a final decision, we can do that. And yes, I do have the 3 sessions at 50% off. If you sign up for any of the other sessions I have that, you know, that charge a fee, you use the coupon code of special 50, so that the number 50 after special, no space in there. And so, but if you have any, I guess, doubts about this, or you're not quite sure, well, set up the 15-minute call and let's talk about it. And we'll see, because I can, there are very few instances. I think I don't think I haven't really had anyone that it hasn't helped, but I can check and see if this is right for you also. Like,
Mhm.
if you have a situation, I can kind of do a muscle test and say, oh, okay, it's probably not going to help you with this, but it might help you in this regard, that kind of thing. But give me a call. Let's talk about it. And if we haven't answered the questions on the show, but let's have a chat.
Yeah. The terminal, I remember the term, and I learned this back in the 80s with this one gal in Phoenix when I was working for, interestingly enough, a Christian radio station.
Hmm.
I learned about kinesiology, or muscle testing, if you will. And of course, she showed me how to do it on the physical level. But there comes a point, if I'm not mistaken, Tim, where you do reach a point where you don't need really to do that anymore, because it becomes a part of you. It's like your intuition. And all you have to do is, for example, she would use the example of going into the grocery store and picking particular fruits and vegetables and so on and so forth. And all right, is this something that would be good for me? And you do the muscle testing, the physical thing, and it's either yes or no. If it's yes, of course, you put it in your basket and go on. Eventually, there comes a point where you don't even have to ask the question. You're there in the supermarket. Your body knows where you are, and just guides you, and you just
Yes.
you just feel which direction to go. I would take it that you're in that place too, where you just know that you know, because you get that from the inside.
Yes, and I love that. I still do the physical muscle testing quite a bit too, but I do have that sense where, because as you become more and more in touch with yourself, with your body, you realize that you ask the question to yourself, and your body will give you the response. So you
Mhm.
don't have to do, you know, uh, there's all kinds of different kinds of ways you can do muscle testing, right? But you don't have to do that, because again, your body will tell you without you having to do anything. And it's funny when you were mentioning the groceries, because I do that as well. I also do, like, in the refrigerator when we have leftovers. It's like,
Ah,
oh, is this still good or no? No, okay, throw it out. So I do that quite a bit.
yeah. I know that, for example, if I was to go to our local farmers markets here in Santa Barbara County, uh, I don't have to do that much because I feel very confident in the people who are providing the fruits and vegetables, the produce, if you will, up and down the street. And quite honestly, I would much rather get my food from the farmer's market than I would from the
Mhm.
grocery store, because it used to be that all you had to do, they always told you, if you want to eat healthfully, eat from the ends of the grocery store and the back. Don't buy anything from the middle because it's all processed. It's canned or jarred or what have you, and it's gone through the process. But now you can't even say that about the ends in the back of the store because so much has been done before. It's like the meats and so forth, and the poultry and the pig, the ham and so forth. Have all been treated with this, that, and the other thing before they ever make it to the grocery store. And the produce. I don't know about you, but I just don't have I don't have a good feeling when I see the word organic because you can slap a label on anything. You can call it whatever you want. And unless somebody knows how to test it, you don't know. You just don't know. Unless you grow it yourself, you really don't know. But I would put my faith in the farmers who come to the farmers markets because I've always found it interesting, Tim, that why would a producer of a food product want to poison his customers?
Right.
It's kind of like the cigarette manufacturers. You know that it isn't good for their health. You know that eventually it's going to kill them somewhere down the road. Why would you do that? Well, I suppose if you're just interested in the bottom line, the answer to that question is, well, they're still having more and more babies. You just said it. You have 8.3 billion people, and we're making more. So our consumer base is never going away. And it's like, really? And what about ethics and morals and just doing the right thing? And that's part of where even what you are talking about can help us to at least avoid some, not all, but some of the pitfalls in terms of what we put into our bodies, the fuel that we need, not just to run the machine, but also for example, the pharmacy that we have built in that takes care of us. So I think that all of this is just really a great thing. Do you have a particular step-by-step process that's sort of the protocol you use, or like everyone's health and wellness, it's individual? You have an individual protocol when you meet the person on the phone or in Zoom or in person, and you get a sense of what it is that they need. That's when you develop, shall we say, the protocol, the steps to facilitate or assist them in their balancing.
Um, yes, there's one thing I really like about this system is, yes, everybody's individual. Everyone is separate, unique. Everyone may have the same symptom, but it never is the same result as far as healing that symptom or removing the blockages so the body can heal itself. So it's never exactly the same. And so I just think that's so fascinating. But I learned, you know, the cookie cutter approach to people just does not work in my experience. And so I approach it in a couple of ways. One, if people are already in tune with themselves, and most people are to a certain degree, they are. If something is let's say screaming at them, right? They have a lot of pain, or something is just really bothering them.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's usually something we can start with, because it's like, okay, your body is telling you something is not right. Let's focus on this right now. And I usually do ask people to give me 3 to 5 issues that they would like to work on, and that way I can muscle test between those issues to see which is the most important to do. However, sometimes people are like, I just don't know, I'm not sure. And so I can say, okay, let's just not come up with a label. Let's say whatever is in the best interest of this person, that's our focus for today. And something will always come up. So that's what I do. And then I just follow what their subconscious is telling me. And just to be clear, I'm only asking yes or no questions. So it's not like I'm looking into someone's soul or knowing exactly how things are. It's not like that.
Yeah.
It's just asking yes or no questions to say, okay, is this something that is caught, being contributing to this issue that they're having, or blocking them from their best interest? So, so yeah, that's my approach.
And you continue to add different modalities you have over the years. And as new things come your way, new things that you're introduced to facilitate, again, the energy healing and the energy work that you do, you tend to incorporate those kinds of things in there, which then sort of strengthens your toolbox, so to speak. It adds to your toolbox of sort.
Yes, yes, yes.
Yeah.
And and that's the wonderful thing too, because I do try to be open. I always have been, and it's kind of funny because my wife would say, she always knows if I'm trying to find out something new, I'll ask a million questions, and because I am interested in other ideas and thoughts and how things work differently. Because yeah, there is no one cookie cutter way of dealing with things, and there are so many aspects of different shoot, I'm forgetting the word right now, but there's so many different pieces of the puzzle that
Yeah.
go into our health. And like you're talking about organic or inorganic, or processed or not processed, and I was very fortunate. I grew up. My mom had grown up on a farm, and so I was fortunate enough that we had a lot of fruit trees where we were, and I got to experience picking those fruit off the tree, or sometimes we'd go to an orchard, and pick stuff. And also I got to visit my grandmother, who still had, she had like half an acre, but she had all these fresh vegetables and everything, and our whole meal was from that garden. And the flavor is unbelievable,
Yeah.
and you just know right then when you're eating that kind of food, it feels so much better to your body, and the taste is so much better, everything. And then when you go to, like you were saying, the grocery store, and you get some of this fruit, it's been picked way too early, so it doesn't have all the nutrients, it doesn't have the flavor. It tastes too acidic a lot of times, or just not quite right, And so yes, so it's there's so many factors to all of this. Now, is it better to eat an orange from the grocery store than not eating an orange? Well, yeah, it's probably better than eating chips or something, but
Yeah.
um, but it is fascinating, and we can all, our whole lives we're learning. So let's learn from each other. Maybe something has really helped in your experience that you can share with me, and then I have that knowledge now too, where it's like, hey, and it's so amazing, this coincidence aspect of things. Once I learn something, almost always someone will, cross my path that will have an issue, and I'll say, hey, I just heard about this. You might try it. So,
And in a lot of instances, it's not gonna, what do you got to lose? It's not gonna hurt you, and it may do nothing, but it may do something kind of like you were talking about the B vitamin that you took and how it really lifted you up there a little bit. And
mhm.
so we all have to find our own path, our own way, and so forth. And I struggle with that still because my wife really does not want to eat anything that isn't organic. If
Mm.
I go to the grocery store and I pick up some stuff, I will make the effort to try to find the organ. Matter of fact, I had the experience just recently where I went into the store and I found they had people were buying bunches of bananas, but they apparently didn't want the whole bunch, so they would break off one or two or three. So you had all these singles. So I picked up four singles, and then I'm working my way through the produce section. I'm coming across the organic section, and there were bananas there, and they had a clump of four. So I put the clump of four organics in my basket. I went back to the place where I got the first set of bananas and I put them back in
Mm.
deference to my wife and the fact that she would prefer to have something organic. So and sometimes they don't have it in the organic section. Uh,
Yeah.
and she's fine with that too, but she would prefer. And I know everybody has their preferences. I get that. So that's what we have to do. And then, of course, Definitely do that muscle testing. Tim Spriggs is my guest, and you are listening to the program we call Tell Me Your Story. Tim Spriggs and wellnessrevival.net is the website. Lots of special offers. Go to his website, find out more. And Tim, I want to thank you for joining us again. This has been a lot of fun. I've always enjoyed chatting with you, and we'll look forward to having you back again and just continuing the conversation, talking more about this. It may seem to some as rather repetitious. Matter of fact, from one program to the next might seem a little repetitious. However, that's part of what sort of hammers the message home. If all of my guests are giving basically the same information, there's got to be something to it. Okay. I'm not saying that the majority is always right, because the majority has been wrong in the past. Okay.
Yep.
It has been wrong in the past. So become your own minority, so to speak, and make your own decisions. Do that muscle testing. Learn it. Matter of fact, get in touch with Tim through his website, wellnessrevival.net. Have that 15-minute call. Say, hey, how can I learn kinesiology or muscle testing? And I'm sure that between he and you, he can help you to learn how to do that. And Tim, thank you so much for being a part of what we're doing here.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. And yeah, I always enjoy talking with you. So I look forward to any other conversations we can have.
Absolutely. I am going to ask you those three questions that I asked you before, because we like to get a reprise on that. Maybe the answers will be a little different this time. But before I ask those questions of you, as I see you're trying to figure out, okay, what were the questions? I want to thank you folks for listening to and watching Tell Me Your Story, New Paradigms for a New World. We are giving you choices and knowledge of those choices to help make your dreams come true. Sundays at 7 a.m. and 7 p.m., Monday mornings at 1 a.m., Wednesdays at 9 a.m., and Monday through Friday from 8 to 9 a.m., streaming live at those times at richarddugan.com. And we are also wanting to tell you that we are on on SoundCloud, iTunes, TuneIn Radio, Spotify, Stitcher, Player FM, Blueberry, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music. We're on YouTube, where you can watch these conversations. We hope you'll subscribe and click notification. We also hope you'll pick up a copy of my book, which is Choices, 5 Steps for Life, and it is available at Amazon in hardcover, paperback, and Kindle, and we will be giving Audible out here shortly. And also, if you can leave us a tip, we have a tip jar. It's called PayPal. We have a link to both Amazon and PayPal on the homepage of richarddugan.com. Give what you can. We'll take energetic. And we've been talking about energy healing and balancing. We'll take energetic support and healing as well. And we thank you for what you are able to support us with. And thank you to those who have helped and to those who will help. And finally, we ask you to take the time to go within during this decade of perfect vision, the 2020s, and spend some time in that quiet, peaceful, still, calm place and listen to that still, small voice. To our first of 3 questions, we ask our very special guest, who is Tim Spriggs?
Well, I'm a man, a husband, friend, brother, son, and member of this world, obviously. And I'm someone who really cares deeply about not only family and friends, but pretty much anyone I come in contact with. I always I don't want to take too much time, but there was a friend in 5th grade that he made me realize that if you look hard enough at somebody, you can find something wrong with them. But if you look hard enough at someone, you can also find the good in them. So I try to approach life from that point. Trying not to negatively interpret things about people up front. And caring has always been a part of me. I was adopted into a medical family, like I mentioned before, and they cared a lot and wanted to help people. So I've always been very inclusive as well. And my wife likes to say that I like a big heart walking around. And in trying to help people, I always tried to share my knowledge. I've attained knowledge I've attained, and if it's pertinent to the situation, I try to share that and help people. So ultimately, I'm in this field so that I can help people, and that's what I want to do. I want to share this with the world.
What gets you up in the morning?
Well, from my perspective, every day is an adventure. I always talk about that. And yeah, some adventures are not as happy or easygoing as others, but every is an adventure, and sometimes they're sad and very difficult, but you still learn from them. And so I feel that one has to experience both really in order to find balance and ultimately have wisdom to share.
Mm. And finally, what was your best day?
So it's funny because I remember you asking this last time actually, and I have a hard time coming up with a quote unquote best of anything, because I always in my mind have that answer of, well, it depends, right? And but I and last time I had said this too is I think while this isn't my first marriage, my wedding day was just in one word, awesome.
Hmm.
We brought two worlds together. We have a blended family. All of our combined children, as well as both of our eclectic families and friends, were all there. And, it was just wonderful. Everyone was getting together and getting along and just had a great time. Um, and as with any wedding, they're never quote unquote perfect.
Hmm.
We did have our uh, little glitches here and there, but we didn't let that bother us because we'd already gone into it. The most important thing is that we're with family and we're getting married, and that was our uh, goal. And we wanted to share it with everybody. And so the imperfections actually, combined with our positive perspective on things, made it perfect.
Hmm. Wonderful. Well, once again, Tim, I thank you so much for being on the program. We look forward to having you back again, and we thank you, folks, for listening to and watching Tell Me Your Story. And until our next podcast, videocast. Love to Lal, Jeanette. I'm still listening. Dad, continue to be happy because I am. Smokey, I'll see you on the other side. Mike, thanks for letting me be in your life, and to my dear friend Zorro, aho, aho.